Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? I was in labor for 26 hours and was in a lot of pain as I didn't take an epidural. My husband was constantly on the phone, either playing games or talking with his bros, being really loud. When I asked him to please hang up, he'd hang up the phone and then like 10 minutes later call them back. He really wanted to talk to them because his friends went on a boys' trip without him, because I asked him to stay back so he could be here when I went into labor. They were calling to tell him about how their trip was going. He apologized to them, blaming it on me being a nag. I was really annoyed and told him if he wanted to talk to his friend, he could do that elsewhere so I can be in pain and peace. He was like, "Alright, fine baby, I'll just call them back later." So I had about 20 minutes of peace until his mom FaceTimed him, where he proceeded to put me in a video call. His mom then makes a comment about how she remembers when she was in labor with him and that she still did herself up. She even claimed she looked so good that a doctor was even flirting with her. I was holding back everything inside me to not say something, as I didn't want to disrespect my mother-in-law. But at the same time, she sometimes just makes the stupidest comments at worst times, and at this moment, I could not stand talking to her. A nurse ends up coming in and could tell I was upset and asks me if everything was alright, and I tell her I just really want to be alone. She ends up kicking out my husband, and in turn he ends up missing the birth of our firstborn daughter, because he left the hospital as he was angry that I got the nurse to kick him out the room. He refused to come see his daughter afterwards because he was angry at me for kicking him out. My mother-in-law, who did visit me in the hospital, wouldn't stop talking about how I'm such a bad wife for removing my husband from the room. When I got home, he kept on bringing up how I ruined a moment of bonding with his daughter, and how he could never forgive me for that. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out the delivery room because he was making phone calls? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That's a whole lot of red flags from your husband. 1. Had to be told not to leave on boys' holiday when his wife would likely be giving birth to his child. 2. Ignored his laboring wife to chat with his friends on his said trip. 3. Called them back after being told to hang up. 4. Answered a video chat from someone you didn't want in the room. 5. Allow that person to be disrespectful towards you. 6. Went off in a sulk instead of visiting you and his child as soon as he was allowed back in. If he has a problem with the situation, you could ask him what he was feeling the last time he had a new person escaping from his vagina, so you can compare notes and come up with a compromise. 100% all of this. The deflection makes me angry for her. She needed her husband and he acted like a child. Childbirth is nothing to joke about. Women die in childbirth and it's painful. Definitely not the a-hole, but having to tell a grown man how to act isn't something you want to be doing while in labor. Absolutely. Maybe I'm just always looking for an out, but I would have filed divorce the second I left the hospital with that behavior. I absolutely love and adore my partner, and he is literally only green flags. I'm pregnant, and if he did even one of the things on this list while I was actively in labor, I would get my friends to pack my things and never come home to him. This is disgusting behavior. Not the a-hole. The nurse kicked him out of the room. He's the one that chose to leave the hospital altogether. Tell him you missed the birth of your daughter because you threw a temper tantrum and left the hospital. If you had been focused on me and the baby instead of playing games and having loud phone calls with your friends, I never would have asked you to leave the room. You're mad that you missed this moment? Well, I am mad that when your daughter and I needed you most, you prioritized chatting with your friends and complaining about what a nag I am. I am mad that when I was in an incredibly vulnerable position, you let your mom insult me. I am mad that you're blaming me for something that was the consequences of your own selfish actions. I am mad that you're still making the situation about yourself and playing the victim instead of celebrating that I gave birth to our daughter. I'd copy and paste that into a message to him, because that's exactly what happened. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for paying first-class airfare for my nanny and not my son? Me and my husband had our first child, Matt, 18 male, when we were just 17 years old. We weren't in a very good financial situation at first, and it only got better when Matt was 9. Currently, we both work well-paying jobs, bought a spacious home, and have our luxuries. We had 2 more children, 8 male and 5 female. As we cannot stay at home all the time, we hired a nanny, a 45 female, to take care of the little ones. Matt had complicated personality change at age 11. We put him in a private school, and maybe the contact with other teenagers brought out a selfish and elitist side of him. We tried our best to try to improve it, but with the onset of adolescence and stubbornness, it just seemed to get worse. It got better when my husband and I decided that at age 16, he would work part-time so he could start taking financial responsibility, and that seemed to give him a reality check as we cut our support on his perks. This year, after the worst period of the pandemic, my husband and I decided to go on an international trip. And instead of giving May a vacation at home, we decided that we would take her, not going to work, and pay for everything. I don't live in the US. Matt, on a random day, overheard me talking to my husband that I was planning to pay for a first-class seat for May and her son, for her to enjoy like we did. Matt then asked why we should do this. We were already paying for everything. Let her go economy class if she can't afford first class. I was shocked. I said that it was mean to say this, and that she was an important person for our family who gives up having time for her own child to take care of mine. It's the least I can do. He still stood his ground. So I said if he sees it that way, I said I'd buy him an economy seat and he'd have to turn around to pay for an upgrade, for him to see how privileged he is to have parents who can pay. He nodded, thinking it was a joke, even though I said it wasn't. As the months went by, I warned him that his ticket was economy, and he didn't believe it. On the day of the trip, like a shocked Pikachu, he was startled when he realized I told the truth. He threw a tantrum in the middle of the airport, saying that 10 hours of travel would be very uncomfortable. I just replied, "You had 6 months together. You've been warned." The flight was okay, but Matt was outraged the entire trip, saying it was almost torture and that we had gone too far. My husband agrees with me, but my parents said I went too far doing this. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He fooled around and found out. Doesn't sound like those elitist attitudes really left. Just simmered for a while. My parents said I went too far doing this. Yes, you absolutely tortured him by making him sit with a peasant. How awful. Exactly. He's lucky she still took him on vacation at all. Imagine what the flight would have been like with him whining in a nearby seat. Not the a-hole, and I'm sorry you have such an entitled son. Ask him why almost torture would be fine for the nanny but not for him. Because that wouldn't work with someone like this. My husband's 39, younger brother 28, has never had a job that lasted more than 3 months until he started doing DoorDash and skipped the dishes, because he didn't want to be told what to do. In his mind, having anyone physically watch what you do was unacceptable. You bet he would completely freak if he was in this situation. Asking why it is okay for them and not him would have the response of, "They are to help. We pay them. They aren't owed anything." Entitlement is a terrible thing. Not the a-hole. Matt can't tell you what to do with your money, and is plain mean and classist to negotiate a downgrade in airfare for anyone. However, you have already tried taking privileges away by making him work and not supporting his perks. I don't think monetary punishment is going to work anymore. You need a new solution. I would try a family therapist to see what is at the bottom of his relationship with money and what you can do to change it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to punish my daughter for being rude to her grandmother and clapping back at mother-in-law? No one in the family likes mother-in-law's husband for a couple of reasons. He works in an immoral industry and admits he will do anything for money. He is very pompous/competitive and likes to take digs about everyone's financial situations. He was a lazy parent to his own children and a cold and jealous stepfather to his stepchildren. Really, mother-in-law is the only person who likes him. She gets an entirely different side of him, but at the same time, I feel she can't just ignore who he is. My 13-year-old daughter is a very smart and intelligent girl and has decided to be no contact with him. We fully support her and she no longer attends family events. Recently, we went out in a group for someone's birthday. Just the women, so he was not there or she would not have gone, and we saw the musical Hadestown. After the musical, we grabbed dinner and my daughter was talking about how the kids in her theater group are obsessed with it, and she feels they romanticize a toxic relationship in the two of the main characters, Hades and Persephone, and Hades should be viewed strictly as a villain. Mother-in-law said, "It's honestly the best feeling though when someone hates everyone but you. It's so cute." My daughter replied, "Well, that isn't surprising, as we've all seen the a-hole you married." Mother-in-law laughed and said, "If you were my kid, you'd be in so much trouble right now," and looked at me like she expected me to say something. I replied that I don't believe in punishing for every little thing, and my daughter was expressing her opinion. I said that mother-in-law said something which offended my daughter, so my daughter responded, and there would be no punishment. I also said that I try not to come from a place of authoritarian parenting. Mother-in-law said I clearly got whatever I wanted, and that is why my daughter is so annoying to be around. I replied that mother-in-law was reactive and controlling with her own kids, and now they all hate her. Mother-in-law was furious, and now the family is pretty divided. My husband is actually on his mom's side, which surprised me because he usually isn't. Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. Mother-in-law gave an opinion your daughter did not like. She did not attack your daughter. Rather than replying with evidence justifying her opinion, your daughter chose to use a personal attack. Your daughter was unnecessarily unkind to mother-in-law. Mother-in-law's response to your lack of action was inappropriate on her part. But your response was just as bad, if not worse. Personal attacks are not okay. Everyone here acted inappropriately. The mother-in-law made a ridiculous remark and got the full brunt of teenaged no a-holes barred, no BS, and she deserved very little bit of it. Mother-in-law said something your daughter disagreed with. Your daughter responded by calling her husband an a-hole, and then it spiraled into the realm of ridiculous from there. This is the stuff divorces are made of. I feel sorry for your husband. Everyone sucks here. It's not something the daughter disagrees with. It's mother-in-law admitting to her family that she likes how her husband treats them like trash. Mother-in-law gets off on inflicting her awful husband on everyone else because she needs to feel like a queen. She deserves to be slammed down for that. She's not just staying in the relationship because he's lovely to her. She actively likes how he treats everyone else like crap. Why should they all just ignore that? You're the a-hole. That was extremely rude and unprovoked. Grandma didn't even insult or seal breaker. She's always been a little moody on her period, but it was a lot less intense at the beginning of our relationship. In the past year, it's become unbearable. When my girlfriend is on her period, she becomes a totally different person. She won't go to work nor do chores. She lays in bed for 7 to 10 days and expects me to do everything for her. I work 10-hour days, and she demands I cook for her and clean the house as soon as I get home. She will leave a bloody mess in the bedroom and bathroom and demand I clean it. Now, the worst part isn't her staying in bed or making me do all the chores. I could probably handle that on its own. The worst part is her attitude. She becomes extremely mean and will insult me for the entire week. She has made me cry before due to how awful she gets. Nothing I do is up to her standards. If I don't do what she asks as soon as she asks it, she throws what I can only describe as a tantrum. She will scream, cry, and has even thrown things at me. She has lost jobs due to her trying to take 7 to 10 days off a month. If they don't approve her time off, she either quits or just doesn't show up, which leads to her getting fired. Thankfully, she's found a more flexible job, but her taking so much unpaid time off is causing us to struggle financially. At first, I was extremely concerned that it was a health issue and urged her to go to her doctor. However, she refused. After almost a year of begging her to go to the doctor, I have given up because I can't force her to go. And she gets extremely angry when I mention it, saying I'm selfish and don't want to take care of her. It causes me a lot of emotional distress because I know something is probably seriously wrong, but I can't force her to go get it checked. She's even gotten her family involved to get me to stop nagging her to go to the doctor. Today, she somehow bled all over the toilet seat and just left it for me to clean, which I did. I was exhausted from work and said I didn't want to cook and will order takeout. She started to insult me, even mentioning some trauma from my past just to hurt me. I lost my cool and told her she needs to stop being a massive entitled jerk to me and that her period is not an excuse to act like this. She screamed and started throwing stuff at me, and I ended up going to stay with my parents. I have tried so hard to be understanding and to support her, but I can't take this anymore. She has her family messaging me and calling me an a-hole, and I do feel bad because I do think she's in pain, and it's likely a medical issue. But on the other hand, what am I supposed to do if she won't go to the doctor? Am I the a-hole? Anti-A, anti-A, anti-A. She is abusive and using her period to justify it. No, she doesn't get away with that just because she has a genital that bleeds. You're right that you can't control her behavior and force her to see a doctor if she refuses. But then please control your behavior and leave her. She's mistreating you and is refusing any kind of help or opportunity to change. You do not deserve to stay stuck with a person like that. You deserve to be with someone who loves you and doesn't use excuses to mistreat you. Thank you for your perspective. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow. It really hurts because she only acts like this during her period, which to me proves that it's almost definitely a health issue. Maybe a hormonal imbalance? Usually she's so sweet and patient. But these few days each month are awful. I just want her to go to the doctor. Her period isn't an excuse for any of this, particularly as she hasn't acknowledged she needs to consult a doctor and likely a psychiatrist for her situation. OP, I hate to pull the usual dump him card, but at the very least move out for now. This is neither normal nor acceptable. Maybe she will seek help if she has to clean up her own messes and she manages to alienate enough people. Not the a-hole. Her intense mood change, excessive bleeding, and a period that lasts 7 to 10 days is alarming. She seriously needs to seek medical help for her own good. However, you're not the a-hole and you have every right to demand that she seeks help or leave. Thank you. I am very concerned and have been since I noticed how bad her periods had gotten. I have pleaded with her to please go to the doctor, but she's very stubborn and says there was nothing abnormal with her health. Her parents have also gotten involved and said it's abusive for me to pressure her so much when she's already said no. I feel backed into a corner here. Other than when she's on her period, she's wonderful. I love her very much, but I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do anymore.